Good evening, members of Golden State Republican Women and fellow California patriots up and down the coast of California. We are deeply grateful to Janet Price and all of GSRW for the opportunity to share information about Unite for Freedom. That's Unite, the number 4, Freedom. I'm Lisa, joined by my dear friends Cheryl Frink and Michelle Morgan. We're all your Southern California chapter leads, and there's equally patriotic, cool chapter leads in Northern California as well. We're all volunteers, not official spokespeople, just citizens answering a call. As a member of OCGSRW, located in Marbella, in San Juan Capistrano, and we meet at the Marbella Country Club, I held the Americanism position. In my opinion, that's the best position there is. During that time, I founded Salt and Light SOC, a biblical citizenship ministry focused on bringing our values and voices into the public square. I was able, with board approval, to share some of those same action items at our meetings at Marbella, usually right before having the honor of leading them in the Pledge of Allegiance. Many of these actions had us speaking in the public square at city councils, at the Board of Supervisors, at school board meetings, and that's where I first witnessed the fierce, fact-based fearlessness of Cheryl Frink and Michelle Morgan. These two women have stood up for our freedoms since the COVID overreach of 2020 and the election debacle that followed. And every battle since, calling out wrongdoing from officials who have failed to represent our values. The three of us, united by faith, fight, and purpose, joined forces with Unite for Freedom. More about that decision from Michelle later. Unite for Freedom is a nonpartisan volunteer organization devoted to restoring every American's fundamental right to legitimate representative government through legal and accurate elections. Many of you here have been on the front lines of the election integrity fight. We honor the work of EIPCA, True the Vote, Judicial Watch, Patriot Force, and others. Now is the time for all of us to combine our strength. Now is the time to unite for freedom. Our goal is election validity. For years, we've pursued election integrity, and that mattered. But integrity relies on trusting officials to fix themselves, and history shows they seldom do. Integrity points out what's wrong. Validity enforces what's right under constitutional and criminal law. Integrity was a hope, validity is a standard. That's how we restore real security, real voters, real votes, real counts, and real proof. Unite for Freedom is the first organization in the country to measure election misconduct as defined in criminal law. Not opinion, not rumor, but measurable violations drawn from official public record, public data. Cheryl will be sharing some of these reports in a moment. U4F has completed studies across 21 states, each one exposing patterns no honest system should produce or legally certify. To understand why our methods carry such weight, it helps to know the depth behind them. Our chairman, Harry Hari, is the architect of our forensic program and the peer-reviewed processes underpinning every U4F report. Harry spent more than 3 decades securing some of America's most vital systems: White House communications, public alert networks, and sensitive military channels. His software has protected infrastructures for the NSA, CIA, DoD, DHS, DOJ, and for civilian institutions like American Express, Visa, MasterCard, and 16 of our nation's 25 largest banks worldwide. When Harry speaks about election system vulnerabilities, he's not offering theories. He's the man who spent his career locking down the very systems everyone else relies on for national security. That's why the data he and our 94-member volunteer forensic team produces carries such weight. It isn't partisan, it's professional. And that professionalism, anchored in law and measurable proof, defines our commitment to election validity. U4F supports, and we are positioning ourselves to serve President Trump's executive order preserving and protecting the integrity of American elections. Our forensic reports expose systems breaks, where systems break, the law, and supply lawmakers the proof to pass the needed reforms. Hand-counted ballots, voter ID, proof of citizenship, and ending insecure machines and mail-out ballots. Our mission is to provide the forensic evidence that proves these reforms are necessary, and our findings can become the factual backbone for legislation, executive enforcement, and public demand at both the state and federal levels. Thank you all again for joining us tonight. Now, Cheryl will show you an example of a Unite for Freedom's peer-reviewed report and see what it reveals about California's elections. And then we'll hear from Michelle Morgan on the many ways to get involved with us. Please place your questions in the chat and we'll address as many as we can after our presentation. It's truly a pleasure to turn this over to Cheryl Frink.
Hi, thank you, Lisa. This is great. I am so happy to be with all of you tonight. And as Lisa did mention, we have been involved in looking at the election issues since 2020. I first started digging into Orange County data and quickly discovered that nothing was making any sense. After years of volunteering with several different groups, I feel I finally found a home with Unite for Freedom. It's due to their accuracy of the data, their understanding of election laws, and their pledge to work in tandem with all groups that support restoring truth and trust in our elections. Unite for Freedom conducts forensic audits using each state's own official data. The results are undeniable. Millions of votes across the country, certified as accurate by election officials, originate from registrations that appear to violate election laws. These registration violations are just one of the many failures in our broken system that Unite for Freedom has identified. And we all know this is a national emergency, and Unite for Freedom is exposing the problems and wants to develop solutions to secure the entire election process from registrations through certification. Tonight, I'm going to focus on 3 different reports from the 2024 California November elections, and I'll show you how these findings were derived. One of the first reports we will be looking at is called the Election Validity Scorecard. What this is it's taking the state's official records and analyzing them to see if they meet election law requirements. These findings expose multiple violations in voter registrations, voter eligibility, vote counts, and compares these results to legally allowable vote errors. There are 4 questions that are looked at. The first is, were the voter rolls accurate, which is required by the National Voter Registration Act of 1993. Second is, were the votes counted from eligible voters? This is required by the United States Constitution. Thirdly, were the numbers of votes counted equal to the number of voters who voted? And finally, were the number of ballots in error that, according to the Help America Vote Act of 2002, which only allows an error rate of 1 in 125,000 ballots. So let's dig down and look at this data from the 2024 California Validity Scorecard and take a look at what each data is exposing. The first line item you're going to look at is going to be the registration violations. And those are part of the registrations that we just took the state's rolls, and of the total number of the state rolls, we found 9,539, 574 registrations that were flagged as and signaled potential violations. So this report, when we're talking about these violations, we're really talking about what does that mean? So we would look and see, are there any suspicious names? We were finding names that were registered with an asterisk, one letter, Mandarin characters, and there even were people that were registered as Jesus Christ. These are the kinds of violations that we're finding throughout. Then there were more registrations that were talking about the second line with the ballots with voting violations. Of those, 114,000 of them were actually duplicated registrations. So that means the same registration was in there more than once. And then also on that line, we've had 3.8 million of those had backdated registrations. So they would vote, and then later on they would find that that they were registered after the fact of voting. And then even here in Orange County and throughout the state, there's inaccurate or missing birth dates. In Orange County, we've found voters that were born in the year 1800, 1850, and 1900, certainly drawing into question their validity. And then we looked at of these 9.5 million registration violations, we found that 5,588, 594 of them actually were allowed to vote. And again, we're finding millions of registrants that had invalid or illogical registrations. Many of them had duplicate illegal registrations as well, and the backdated registrations. So again, of the 9,539 and some change, there were quite a few of them that still got through the system and were allowed to vote. And the one that was very concerning is this category called voters missing a voter. And in this category, we discovered 77,085 votes are missing a voter. And this is according to VoteCal official data, where they reported, so their job is to report how many voters voted every year. And the state certified 77,085 more votes than VoteCal official data. And then we did a little more studying and come to find out in 2019, the Secretary of State at the time was Alex Padilla before he went on to make havoc in the Senate. He passed a law that allows the injection of fictitious names into the voter rolls. So how many of these 77,000 are part of that law that was passed with nobody's knowledge? It remains to be seen. And then the final result is the unresolved errors of the voters that cast the ballot, which was the 5.5 million voters. That amounts to 130 errors, which is well above the HAVA law that will only allow 1 out of 125,000. So you'll see there, that's just the scorecard. Then we do another report, and then we dig deeper into it, and it's called our phantom voter report. And let's define what is mean by that term. A phantom voter are voters that have virtually no other footprint beyond casting a ballot in the 2024 election. This means that among other indicators that we've looked at, they have no bank presence, no social media, no driver's license, no auto or mortgage loans, no Medicaid, etc. Yet these voters still had a ballot mailed, cast, and counted. In this report, the state's certified totals drill down on the voters who actually voted. We're only looking at the voters that voted here. And then we use commercially available fraud prevention tools that are called skip tracing. And we take a randomized sample from these voter rolls, and they are analyzed by a private investigation firm that's hired to assist to producing court-ready compliant data. They're the ones that have the ability and the licensing to dig deeper like this. So that's why we encourage them to join us and go ahead and look at this. The sample total is then extrapolated out into the entire voting population, and we exposed suspected illegal voting and election misconduct with over a 90% confidence level. So as we're looking at this slide now, you will see that the total votes certified in the state was 16,140,044. And then if you go down, the total suspected votes in that totaled up to 2,965,861, which equals 18.4% of the votes that should be not counted. And we're going to look at each little category. The first one is we've talked about a little bit before, the voter that does not exist. So 397,538 of the votes of people that were counted were found not to exist. And then the other category, voter not in compliance, over 1.8 million of those, which means they didn't have an address that matched up or other problems that existed, and we couldn't really track down where some of these issues were, but that's what they were looking at. And then another one that's really quite frightening is 689,066 of them, Social Security numbers either did not exist or they had been duplicated, meaning more than one person was using the same Social Security number and voting. And recently there was a DOJ report that talked about the fact that they had discovered there were 394 million Social Security recipients in the records at the federal level. Yet when they looked at the number of citizens, there were only 334 million citizens in the whole United States. So that equaled 60 million extra Social Security numbers that are assigned to potential non-citizens or phantom voters. This is occurring in every county, every state that Unite for Freedom has studied. And if you go to our website, Unite4Freedom.com, you will see the results of these reports conducted in multiple states and individual counties. The different percentages of errors across the country range from 9% to over 18.4%, as seen here in California. California is good at a lot of things, but this is not one of them that we should be considered good at. But unfortunately, our percentage of error is quite high. We're also currently looking at the same report based on the Prop 50 results that are coming through. So we will have more to report on that as time goes on. So stay tuned for that because we're digging deep into the problems that exist there as well. And the other thing that we did, our team of volunteers actually raised the funds to conduct a special study just looking at Orange County 2024 elections by itself. And the results here are equally scandalous. And you can see by this slide the number of votes that don't exist, voters that did not exist, 74,470. Our percentage of votes that should not have been counted were 15.7%. And when we're talking about our number of 86,093 voters that were not in compliance, a perfect example of that recently coming up into the news is a dog was registered to vote and it was counted. The dog's owner posted a photo of her dog with an I voted sticker. She is now in court charged with election fraud, which carries a penalty if convicted of up to 6 years in prison. How many other pets are actively voting? We have no idea, but unfortunately, neither do our elected officials. The Secretary of State and the Registrar are required to know every time they certify an election, allowing an unknown voter to cast and count a vote, they too are guilty of election fraud. Now, there's one other report that we're going to look at tonight, and this one is called the Vote Tampering Report. This one is kind of crazy when you think about it because you're seeing, we've looked at the 2020 and the 2022. Those reports have been finalized. We will be looking at the 2024 as well as we're putting together, but there have been other little fires that need to be put out throughout the country as well as our Prop 50 now. So, but what's happening here is we're looking at the historic records after they've certified the election, and we're watching how things change. And they go back and forth to find these massive voter manipulations that are happening. They're adding votes in, then they take them out over time, then they might put them back in. And it's just frightening to see the amount of fraud that's going on in doing all of this. One voter in Texas had his vote recorded during the same election 71 separate times. But then it was also deleted throughout these times over 70 times. Why all this is going on, we don't really understand it totally in terms of what that's going on. But I think you might all remember in 2020, we watched live on CNN 19,958,000 votes were switched on camera from Trump to Biden, and no percentages of the votes cast ever changed. So why are these historic voting records being manipulated during the election and for years after the election? We really don't know. And, when we are asking these questions, they say, oh, nothing to see here. Please ignore the man behind the curtain. But quite honestly, there is no corporation or financial institution that would accept these records as certifiable. Our elections are hidden in proprietary machines and systems that are not auditable. Which candidates sitting in office within this state and across the country have any validity to be there? Whether they're sitting in a congressional, Senate, whether they're judges, school board, or city council seats, every single one of them are suspect. Yet these imposters make laws, spend our tax dollars, and we have to sit and wonder if they truly were a representative of we the people promised to us by the United States Constitution. Our Constitution clearly states you must know who a ballot is issued to in order for it to be counted. Ballots mailed to non-existent, questionable voters, and even to man's best friend, are being counted, which nullifies legitimate voters. We sit and watch as California continually flaunts election laws by claiming that they are only required to clean them every 10 years. The law clearly states that knowingly or unknowingly certifying a false election is a violation of civil rights laws. Civil rights law is the only law that does not require intent. Election fraud carries a felony penalty for every single violation committed, and officials are then personally liable for these crimes if they go ahead and certify something that they can't justify. These failures are a serious breach to every legal citizen. Only lawful, registered voters should be on our roll, and counts must be audible and accurate to restore our trust. Unite for Freedom's data clearly shows the massive breaches in our election. It robs us of taking away our right to choose our representatives and our freedom of speech. So how many of these officials should be under investigation? The time has come to hold these officials accountable. And now I'm going to ask Michelle to take you through what we all need to do to work together to restore our right to valid elections.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Cheryl, Lisa, and I have spent hours going to Board of Supervisors, City Council meetings, going to the Registrar of Voters, and even school board meetings over the last 4 years. Our team has worked shoulder to shoulder with organizations committed to defending the principles of fair and transparent elections. I'm sure many of you have been affiliated with EIPCA, Patriot Force, Cause of America, True the Vote, and now Unite for Freedom. Unite for Freedom brings something powerful and different to the table. What we've done is we've taken a forensic data-based approach to studying these federal elections. As Lisa mentioned, we're doing it around, we have 21 officially completed, but we're actually involved in Patriots across the nation or working in over 30 states. We're using the certified official public records. And what that is we either go to the county or the state after Shirley Weber our Secretary of State have signed off on those records, and our registrar of voters have signed off on the records, and we actually purchase those records so we can evaluate them. And we have a huge data team of almost 100 people with, I think, something like 1,200 years of combined experience that evaluates this. And what we do is we use the public records and legal definitions to measure the integrity of the election administration. Before we joined this organization, we didn't just take Unite4Freedom's word for it because we've been affiliated with so many organizations. We had our local constitutional lawyer review their work, and she confirmed what we had hoped, that it was solid and constitutional and firmly grounded in the law. So we rolled up our sleeves, and that gave us the insurance to move forward. That gave us the confidence to move forward with them. Because what Unite4Freedom is doing is actually really measuring the real data, the actual raw data from the states once it's certified. It's not based on any rumors or conjectures. This has the potential to really reshape how our country understands the voting process, which is a really daunting task. I have to admit to this call, I had no idea just what a convoluted system this was. And every single day, I feel like we learn a new fact. In fact, last night, Cheryl and I were at a Huntington Beach City Council meeting, and our ROV was presenting to the city council, and we learned a new fact last night. So it's like every day you're learning something new. And I think they've made this system so complicated so we can't understand it. So what we're trying to do is bring accountability. And if they want people to trust the system, the first step is understanding it, seeing that data, knowing the process, and ensuring it works for everyone. That's both sides. And that's the heart of the mission. It's not division, but clarity. And we're not trying to accuse. We want accuracy, and we deserve that. This is our election system. And unfortunately, we have not been involved in the system. We just all did our civic duty and went out and voted, but it takes more than that. And I think we all woke up to that. So the 2026 vision for what we want to do it's big, but it's pretty simple. We want every group across the nation to work together, not in these silos, all those different groups I mentioned earlier. We need to all work together because finding the truth should not be a competition. We should all collaborate and work together to find out what's going on and find a real solution for every state. Because yeah, what's happening in California is awful, but we find that it's happening across all the red states. That's the one thing, the beauty of Unite4Freedom. There's a coalition of patriots across this nation. And Cheryl and Lisa and I attended, along with some of the ladies up in Northern California. We went to a big conference. Actually, it wasn't a big conference. It was small, but we were mighty. And we attended that in Missouri earlier this year. And it was just awesome and so refreshing to see people from all over the nation doing just like what we're doing, getting involved with a local data team, trying to hold accountability. So that's where we can ask you guys at Golden State Republican Women to help us make a difference. Think of your circle. Do you know anyone on your city council, the lone patriot that feels that they can't do anything? Do you know anyone on your county officials that are committed to our constitutional values? Do you know lawyers, paralegals, policy advocates, cybersecurity experts, data analysts, podcasters, influencers? Our goal is to reach out and share our data. We don't want to keep it behind the wall. We need to let every single person across the nation, and if you have family members, we might have a report card you can share with your family members in a different state, because it's just as scandalous as our numbers. I have to say, I think we might win for scandalous, but for the worst numbers, but it's pretty bad in California. But you reach out to them and connect them with our mission and share our data, and then we're just going to propagate that message. We believe if we all unite together, that's how we can really make things happen. And you don't really have to leave the comfort of your home to help us. We've started a new program. We've become digital warriors. Lisa and Cheryl and I just got involved with this program, Unite4Freedom, the group out of Illinois, this amazing woman named Jody. She basically was like, we need to start using social media as our weapon. So we use Signal, the app, and X, and they basically are tied together. And we are creating a digital army across this nation. It's something every patriot, every listener can do. The mission is simple. We just want to amplify the truth. We want to multiply with our engagement, and we want to ensure that honest, verifiable information reaches the people who need it most, and that's us, the American people. When you lift someone else's message, they lift yours, and every click creates momentum, and it's an algorithm that will actually help us propagate this message. When there's just a few of us, we're just a little whisper, but if some of us engage, we're a movement. If 100% of us show up on this call and we're digital warriors, we become unstoppable. This isn't about shouting. We have the facts, and all we have to do is share them. Americans reclaiming the public square. It's basically happening one post and one share and one voice at a time. What we're doing is we're sharing the report cards from each state. We're mentioning a lot of the elected officials. We mention President Trump and a lot of our data, especially the Florida report cards. His Palm Beach County is awful. So it's really awesome. It's in a very easy way to do it over a cup of coffee in the morning, and it kind of becomes addictive. You feel like you're helping. So how you can get involved, first you need to go to our website, Unite4Freedom.com. That's Unite, the number 4, freedom.com, and sign up to volunteer. And then we'll put you through that process. You have to sign a little document. And then since you know us now after this call, you probably will work directly with us. And then you sign up for the digital engagement program, and then we'll guide you how to post, share, and collaborate effectively online. We have trainings. We've been doing that locally here in my office, and we've also been having some Zoom calls with people across the county. So we'd love to grow and make it across the state. And then you bring in others, bring in your network, your family, your friends, your coworkers, anyone who believes in freedom and transparency. So I love this idea that every person, every single one of us can make a difference and it all adds up. Every post adds up, and then we like and share and we work together because we all follow each other and we repost each other's messages. And one thing that I really have taken for granted, I haven't for the last 5.5 years, but America's future isn't guaranteed, and it's worth defending, and we have to defend it. But we don't have to do that with weapons. We can do it with participation, and we do it with repetition and amplification. And every time we show up, even if it's for just those 10 minutes, you strengthen our message, and we educate America on what's really going on with our elections. Because so many people, we've talked to so many elected officials over the last 4 or 5 years who are supposedly supposed to be on our side and helping us, even down to the city council people that we talk to. They do not believe what is happening. And so it's either they're complicit or the numbers are just so staggering that they have a hard time believing it. But if more of us are sharing the message, people know something is wrong. They just don't understand how to fix it. And that's where we can really help out because we understand the system. Last night, we went to the Huntington Beach City Council meeting. Those brave patriots are really trying to help us. Even though the state of California says they don't have standing, they are stepping up and they are trying to defend their city's rights. And once that happens and once that takes fire, hopefully that will light other patriots on fire that are serving in our state, and we can create a movement to fix this. So the best way for us to do this is if this message moved you, please, please, please sign up. Please sign up on our website, Unite for Freedom. Obviously, a financial contribution would really help. There's hundreds of us working across the nation for free. Tens of hours of work, 10 hours or more a week of work. And the financial contributions help us with our computer infrastructure that keeps Unite for Freedom operational. It includes the private servers that we hold all these certified roles and maintain all the election data on. We also have an email system that we communicate sensitive data. We have CRM tools to manage the volunteer organization across the nation. That's Lisa's bailiwick. We purchased those voter rolls across the nation. And I will say, since we've been involved, what we've noticed is a pattern of each state making it more difficult for us to get those records, whether it's at the county level or at the state level, they're putting more roadblocks or making it, fortunately, it's not super expensive here in California. I'm surprised that Shirley Rubber hasn't made it so costly that we can't afford them. Other states, they're thousands and thousands of dollars. And that should upset every single person on this call. These are our election systems. We pay for them with our federal tax dollars and our state tax dollars. So that is our election data. And the fact that they're trying to hold it hostage so we can't look at it should make all of us very angry. So we purchased those. We have legal teams and constitutional attorneys that evaluate our positions we're taking from a constitutional position, because as we have said, this is court ready and it is ready for criminal convictions. That's what I am hoping for, is that people who have ignored this information for the last 4 or 5 years will be held criminally liable. We also pay private investigators who verify and validate the data. As Cheryl had mentioned earlier, yes, we're a bunch of volunteers across the nation. However, we don't have those licenses. The data analysts have a lot of data experience and cybersecurity experience, but they don't have the licenses to be able to evaluate and go take a deep dive on some of the personal information. So that's why the private investigators come in. But we also have the technology piece and the research efforts that it all supports. So we really appreciate that. But yeah, that's like, as I mentioned, lots of volunteers are volunteering across this country, going to city council meetings, presenting this data. We had a resolution reading. For the last 2 years, we've spent going to different city council meetings across the state and across the nation. Different teams did it across the nation, reading our resolution on the record with the data from whatever election it was, whether it be the 2022 election. Most recently this summer, we were doing the 2024 election because we had the 2024 data. And now, as Cheryl mentioned, we're working on that Prop 50 data. We were hoping that some of our numbers would actually help the Steve Hilton lawsuit, the Mark Muser out of the Dillon Law Group's lawsuit. So we are closely aligned with a lot of people. And our team at a higher level, Harry Hari, that Lisa mentioned earlier, most recently has had a face-to-face with the DOJ. So we're very, very encouraged by that. So that's why I really feel like this digital warrior program will get our Unite for Freedom name out there and our data. So can you imagine if California up and down the coast starts posting our report cards and all of our data, and then if we start putting our Prop 50 data, would be even better. So if you're able, we ask that you contribute at unite4freedom.com, but mostly we would love to work with you guys. We'd love for you to volunteer with us, and that would be awesome. Your generosity would be great, and it would ensure that this work continues. And if I can, I will bring up the slides so you can see that. I apologize, I have to share that again. But the QR code and the website, and it's not here. So it's unite4freedom.com. Sorry, you guys, that I don't have that on my screen now.
The website's in the chat. I
Yes,
think,
that's right.
yeah.
Someone posted at the very top.
Earlier.
Unite, freedom.com.
Yeah.
Thank you.
She put the links in the chat box. So
Yeah.
don't click on them. It'll take you out of
Don't
our
go away yet.
program.
We're here to
Okay.
answer any questions. And, I know I had the job of providing all the data. We need to be alarmed by it, but we also need to be empowered by it, because now that we know, we can fix it. And
Well,
now that
thank
we're
you.
all together, we can do this. So,
Well, thank you all for coming here and talking to us tonight. And now we will have some questions. And again, I remind everyone, we have the chat box at the bottom. You can drop your questions in there and we'll try to get through as many as we can. Okay, so let's see. Karen, would you like to start?
You bet. So the first question is kind of just briefly. Leslie wants to know, to clarify, some of the reports that you showed Are they from Orange County only?
The first two reports were from the state of California from 2024, and then there was one that was specifically Orange County. But
Okay.
the um, phantom voter report, I had one from Orange County as well as one from California. These reports we can make available to your team, so you can have them to share, not a problem. And
Okay,
the others were all from the state. So
great.
And all the reports are on the website and
Awesome.
downloadable as PDFs. And if you have a county that you want your own prevalence or your phantom voter study done, that can be done. There is a price tag for that. That's one that we like. Cheryl and Michelle explained. We've got to pay for the skip tracers and the FBI investigators, and it's just like what you would do if there was a missing person. That's the depth that we go to find these phantom voters to prove that they don't exist.
Okay, thank you. The second question is, how are you going to work on the collaboration with other committees that are working on the same mission?
By sharing our data.
and
Okay,
also, we have great relationships with several different groups already that we are interacting with, and we are sharing our data. We're also working with some DOJs and so forth. So our data is available, and we're not trying to, create a smoke screen to keep from people, but we've reached out to Cause of America. We have weekly calls with them. We have calls with the data teams from their group. We have calls with Greg Strindstrom out of Pennsylvania, find out how they're working and what's working for them and what's not. Um, we've worked with Steve Stern. We've got a lot of people with Patriot Force and EIPCA and True the Vote, and so we've made a lot of inroads. And as Michelle was talking about, the fun part of being a digital warrior. I mean, I've been able to make posts on some other things that are on the X report, and before I knew it, I was getting a call from OAN saying we want to interview Harry because of a post that I had created. So this is the kind of thing that, you don't know what you don't know until you get out there, and you don't know who you don't know until you make it happen. So those are the important parts of what we're doing too.
thank you. Back to you, Nancy.
Okay, well, like reading through a lot of what Unite for Freedom, it kind of feels like we're going back in time, with some of the things that you're touching on. It seems like it used to be there was a semblance of being more fair in our elections. Rules have slowly changed, things like ballot harvesting and no voter ID and things like that. Is there a chance you believe that we could ever get back to the 1 day, one vote system?
Cheryl, do you want to take that?
Yeah, we had a very interesting conversation with our ROV last night when he was talking with the city council. And, there's been a lot of misnomers in terms of, oh, if we only ballot harvest more, if we only get more people to show up, it would make a big difference. The reality is we're all voting. We just need fewer people that shouldn't be voting not to be voting. So the numbers don't sound, and it's really a psyop when they keep telling you you're not showing up, and
Yeah.
so it's to degrade our work. And so we also had another opportunity to tell people vote in person, scan your own ballot, because this is why every single vote that was counted the night of the election were votes that were in-person voting. It's these mail-in votes and all this nonsense that goes on. And the state of this state and many others, the cost to all the laws that they have changed to instigate this fraudulent activities that it's created, ballot harvesting, drop boxes, all this other nonsense. This is really something that we can go back to as we expose the problems. And there's no reason that we can't do it. India counts their votes in one day or one night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Can I just
So,
add
so
to
does
that?
Italy.
please
I,
do, Michelle.
yeah, I was just going to say, and it makes us crazy as election validity people who've been out there, screaming and yelling for one day in-person paper ballots. You have the CA and probably other GOP up and down the state preaching to vote early because they don't want to pay to market to us. They don't have to pay to market to any of us. We know that we're going to vote. It makes our job so much more difficult when we go talk to the election officials because they say, well, people like to vote early. And you have people like Carl DeMaio that's pushing that. And if we don't vote the way we want to vote and the way we used to vote, it makes it much more challenging for us. We go to the Board of Supervisors all the time and we hear that. They sit there from the dais and they say, well, everyone loves this mail-in ballot. I don't know how any conservative at this point could put their vote in the mail at this point, knowing what we know. The post office backed Kamala. And
Yeah.
we know at least the last three elections, they have found bags full of ballots down ravines, in garbages, in Huntington Beach this past for Prop 50, literally 3 days after the ballots were sent out a mail truck was robbed. So we have no idea where there are ballots in there. Like there's no way for them to even figure out what was stolen. So there's so many problems with the mail-in ballots and all that. I mean, obviously we don't like the machines either, but yeah, voting in person on election day, we have to get back to that.
And one
If
of the
I may,
things too, oh, go ahead, Lisa.
just remember, it's not just us. It's not just the citizens, the election integrity people screaming about this anymore. This is an executive order.
Right.
President Trump wrote an executive order for all these things: one-day voting, paper ballots, either no machines or secure machines. But Bob Page, our ROV, actually told us he doesn't care if President Trump writes an executive order because the state controls the elections. So that's going to take legislation. So that's where we want to come and lobby with and talk to legislators that are willing to say, just take on the one thing, just take on no more mail out ballots, just take on whatever it is, where they're going to have to write legislation for that. And we can help them with the reports that show we need legislation for that.
And I think one way too we get back to doing it more in person is to continue to educate people. I mean, the way that I've done it in the past too is to say, hey, if you had $1,000 and you wanted to get it deposited into your bank account, are you going to give it to a Dropbox? Are you going to give it to the post office, have it travel through who knows how many hands to get into your account? Or do you go write it to the bank, give it to your teller, and you're done, and you know it's in there? And that really makes a difference because our votes are costing us millions of dollars if we don't have the people in there that have the true fiduciary respect for our tax dollars. So, it's just a matter of making sure we build up more in-person voting, and in time, the cost problems with the mailouts, which is costing the state millions. And we have just here in Orange County, we had in the last 4 years over 269,000 ballots that have been returned consistently as undeliverable. The cost and the waste for that. And this is just one county. So the whole state is suffering from that too. So thank you for that question.
If
Okay,
you live
this
in
is
a
just,
VCA, you have a scanner. Every vote center has 2 scanners. Use those scanners. I don't know why. I don't
Like
know why
depositing money.
they don't train the poll workers to say when somebody walks in and they're so proud, they waited all the way to election day to drop off their ballot at the poll center when they could take their ballot out of the envelope and scan it themselves. And then nobody else touches it. And the tape that runs at night counts that vote. If anybody knows why the poll workers aren't taught that, that's the question I wish I could ask Bob Page.
yeah. there's a lot of questions like that about the, the way people vote. But I'd be interested to see the data that you have uh, before we had mail-in ballots. Do you guys have any idea the comparison of what you have now and what we had before we had this crazy mail-in ballot?
We have done a cost study of what it costs for the difference in having mail out ballots versus it was like less than $2 per vote versus now it's over $12 per vote because of all the hands that it has to do. And that's even a very conservative study because we don't have access to all of the costs that are there. But it's 3, 4, 5 times more expensive to do this. And mail-in ballots were never approved by anybody. It was a COVID
It was a
psyops
code,
to get
yeah.
it to do.
Yeah.
So
Karen, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So Debbie has a question. Will most of these discrepancies in California voting disappear if we can vote Shirley Weber out as Secretary of State?
I would say we would need to do 100% overhaul of our system. Don Wagner from Orange County is trying to run for Secretary of State. The OCGOP has already gotten behind him. I will say for the Orange County women who are on this call, we have spent the last 5 years trying to get him to listen to us regarding our election systems here. So the thought of him actually taking over our Secretary of State, I don't have a whole lot of faith in that. We need a real patriot to go in there, and it would take a team, right? And I think we have some amazing people who I think should run for that seat. But the problem is our system, they get behind these people. The GOP always backs the brand name and not the person who's going to roll up their sleeves and do the hard work. So yes, do I think it could happen? And I think if it was a real patriot that got in there, I can't remember, was it Cheryl, was it Rachel Ham who ran?
yeah, Rachel
And
Ham
Shirley got that seat. She could
superstar,
have,
but
yeah,
they worked very hard to make sure she never got that, and she was ready to do the work.
yeah. The
She's actually
Secretary of
very
State
involved.
has, I'm sorry.
Yeah, she was very involved with Cause of America too. She knew what she was talking about. And now Shasta has a new ROV, and he is making some inroads. And so, but he's a cybersecurity guy. He knows numbers. He knows that. That's what we need. We don't need more attorneys in that position,
No.
truly. Or
Okay. So how old is Unite for Freedom?
Probably 5 years. I would say 5 years. We got involved with them almost 2 years ago, but it started out of a group of patriots out of New York State.
New York
In
citizens.
2020, they freaked out when they lost the election because New York is really a red state too. Their numbers, their report card is not as bad as ours, but it's pretty bad. And they started really digging in deep to their election data. And interestingly enough, Letitia James actually went after the Patriots that were working on the New York Citizens audit. So that group of New York, the team from there met Harry Hari at the pit. I don't know. I might be getting really deep into the weeds, but it's been around for about 5 years, and it's a coalition of different groups from across different states. Harry's from Missouri, the team out of New York, and obviously now we're across the nation.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead and we have time for about 2 more questions. Go ahead, Karen, if you have
Okay.
anything there.
Yeah, so Rosaline wants to know what happens if you're out of town during voting?
absentee ballots still make a lot of sense. There's no problem with that. But it used to be that you would ask ahead of time, or, our military, anyone that was not going to be available, all you have to do is ask for it and it will happen. Italy has some amazing ways that they vote, and I would love to see that instituted here if I had my way, which I'm writing resolutions now in terms of how we could create a election passport. And we go in to vote, we get our passport stamped, and we walk away. We know everything's done and everything is in person, and it's a fun way to do it. Italy does it, and they do pretty well. So
Okay.
some interesting
Absentee
ideas.
ballots have always been constitutional. The mail-out ballot was a law that was passed in California right after COVID.
And it's
Okay.
unconstitutional.
So it's a California state law that everyone gets a ballot, whether or not they ask for it.
Okay. Do we have time for one more?
One more question. Yeah, sure.
Okay. So this was as I was reading through your website, there was something that I looked at, and I'd love to have the answer to this. Uh, on September 20th of 24, a writ of mandamus was filed in the United States District Court for the District of Colorado. Has the federal court issued a ruling, and what was the outcome?
The federal courts right now are very big on throwing things out because they say you don't have standing, and then we'll have our lawsuits dismissed based on the fact that not because they never looked at the data. So that's a problem. But the one in Colorado specifically is still being worked on. As far as last I heard, it was still under duress or going through the motions. And we're continuing to add more anytime. We've actually offered our data locally here as well. So
I
we
believe
continue
that
to make
that
inroads.
Colorado case has something to do with Tina Peters. If anyone's aware of Tina, she was an ROV in a city, in a county in Colorado, and she's now sitting in jail for doing her job. She thought something weird was going on in 2020. The company, the technology firm, I believe it was Dominion. I think she has a machine she uses in that county. She thought something weird was coming on, so she copied the image before they were able to touch those machines. And she basically was trying to sound the horn, and she was like, something was going on. And now she's sitting in jail. The state of Colorado came after her, much like they did here in California. They, disbarred John Eastman. It's just our states have lost their way. So yeah, I believe that case is regarding that. But yes, like Cheryl said, apparently we don't have standing in our court system. And so if all of us just realize that our system, much of our country has been infiltrated, that's why we, the people, have to grow in numbers. Unfortunately, we all get very upset, but they're scared of us uniting and coming into these meetings. Like last night, we were at the Huntington Beach City Council, and that is some good news I have to share with you. Those patriots, they're seven. They're called the Magnificent Seven. They prevailed, and they got the 3 last seats in Huntington Beach, and they are the only city in this entire state that are trying to stand up for us. We presented our data. They sat down with us. We were persistent. We kept going back to their council meetings and reading our resolution on the record. And when we had a meeting on, during the day with a couple of the councilmen and the city lawyer, and they wanted to file a lawsuit before Prop 50 because Huntington Beach is going to be impacted by that. If these maps are put into place, Huntington Beach and Newport Beach will now be part of LA County regarding a lot of the voting and a lot of the measures. So they're going to be treated like Los Angeles. So we had like 45 or 50 people at the meeting last night, and it was amazing. But we need to fill the seats of our city council meetings. You guys can get our resolution and read that into the record and educate your city, because so many people don't understand what's going on. I've talked to so many city council people throughout my county. They didn't even know what the Voters' Choice Act was. They don't know what the Voters' Choice Act is, and that actually impacts every single one of them. So it's just a matter of education and just us growing in numbers. And yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you guys so much. And Janet, would you like to say goodbye to everyone?
No, I really don't. I would really like this to go on and on. In fact, Lisa, I have a thought I will talk to you about. I will call you afterwards about how you guys can get more
I look
exposed.
forward to it.
Anyway, this has been so exciting. I think our state has been worse than we ever really realized until we hear from people like you who have actually done the deep dive. And this is a call to arms. This is a call to action. We can't just sit and expect it to get better, because it won't. And so we know what we're fighting against, and thank you all for shining the light on it and being the activists that you are and calling us to be a part of that too. So I'm very excited to know what you're doing and that you guys are partnering with the other ones. We've heard from others too, and so together make a big footprint here on California. But anyway, it is so wonderful tonight to be back on these Zooms. I've missed them. And I thank Sherry for running our Zoom tonight. I thank Karen and Nancy for fielding the questions so nicely. And I just want to wish all of you a happy Thanksgiving. There's a lot to be thankful for. There really is. And that there are activists like you that are out there working on behalf of faith, family, and freedom. And so I think our better days are ahead. I really do. Um, anyway, also, we don't have another Zoom before Christmas. I have to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. And thank you all for being here tonight. Make sure you get the information that they have put up there. And because there wasn't the scan, the thing we could scan, right?
No.
You're going to do that? Okay, well then it's there available for you. So thank you all so much. Have wonderful holidays, and we're going to get ready for those midterms. We're going to get ready for those midterms. Thank you all.
We
All
can
right.
fix this. Thank you
Good
Yes,
night.
we
for having me.
can.
Thank you guys. Have a great Thanksgiving. God bless
Thank
you.
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 God bless
you.
Bless you.
Thank you.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.